Ben, how's it going?
Hey, how's it going, man? Hey there.
So, you're a psychotherapist,
Yes, I am. As
and
a
how
matter of
long
fact,
and and how long have you been doing that?
roughly around 20 years at this point.
Okay, and what led you down that path in life?
I started out, counseling when I was like in my early 20s, which is like way earlier than I should have.
Mhm.
Counseling spiritual seekers.
Okay.
That was my big thing. I was, kind of the tail end of the hippies
Mhm.
and, still had this very big Eastern philosophy influence for young Americans who had a
Uh-huh.
spiritual yearning. So I was in kind of like spiritual path and ended up kind of, working with people on that path. And so the combination of those two kind of led me to this idea of genius, which is really kind of what I work with now with
Now,
people.
when you say genius, do you mean like Mensa people, or do you mean no?
No,
So what do you mean
no.
by that?
Yeah, the idea of genius is pretty old and it's kind of cross cultural. The one that I'm thinking about right now has nothing to do with IQ. What it has to do with is basically the idea of each person being born with a set of qualities and leanings and callings and gifts that they're meant to express in their lifetime. And a lot of people don't know what theirs are. And that not knowing can cause some not great results in their lives. So I teach to kind of recognize what the feeling is of not being able to express your genius and then go from there.
Okay, so what you're using genius. What you're saying is whether it's like their natural talent, basically.
That's
Okay.
right.
Okay.
That's
Good.
right.
So I think when we had our first conversation a while back, you were saying that IQ doesn't matter when it comes to that, correct?
Yeah, it has nothing to do with intelligence quotient, the IQ. That's roughly maybe like 120 years old or 100 years old. That idea
Mhm.
that was related to what genius was.
Mhm.
Genius comes from the word genius comes from like a Latin word, roughly spoken. It sounds like genere,
Mhm.
which means to beget or to create or to produce, you
Mhm.
know? And so the idea of genius is like kind of like they thought that everybody was born with like this guardian spirit. And the genius spirit was the thing that guarded your expressive self, your what you're here to give the world as a gift,
Okay.
right? So we bring that into, current terms. And, I've come to recognize it as I work with my psychotherapy clients as a real issue. Once people deal with their trauma and their anxiety and depression, there's always some part of them that's like, man, I'm not really thrilled with my life,
Yeah.
even if things are working, and like, what is that? How does it, right? So that's kind of where I come in with my clients.
So you just kinda fill that gap a little bit, makes sense, like
Well,
that.
yeah, it's like it's after healing,
Mhm.
how do I go to expressing something with my life?
Right. And I think that when people I never even thought about that before, if I'm being honest, once you get past whatever is holding you back, your trauma or whatever it may be, I never even thought about what you would do after that or how you would approach things. That's a very I don't wanna say niche, but I guess that's the best way to describe it for, in my limited
Yeah,
vocabulary. So,
right. Yeah.
yeah. But
So along
yeah, go ahead, sorry.
along those lines, we'll get into this later, but I've identified two different places where people can take actions from. The place that you're talking about there is, I call it like the wound drive. And the second, when you're kind of, okay, I need to express myself after I've healed, is the genius drive. And the drive theory in psychology, just picture kind of like something that you wind up with a spring and there's tension that creates a
Mhm,
movement. So think about wanting to express yourself from either of those drives. The wound drive means I got messed up, I got trauma, I have hard things that happened in my life, I've gotten wounded
mhm,
and I want to attempt to heal those wounds. That's what most people spend their whole lives doing it, either
right.
unconsciously or if they're lucky, they do it consciously.
Mhm,
But after that, and sometimes during that, there's more. There's
mhm,
like the gifts that we came here to express, which are real things. And, there's a drive behind that too. There's an energy that wants to express something new,
mhm.
right? And
Yeah,
that's the genius drive.
okay. And then how did you come up with this?
By observing
Mhm,
and then kind of there's plenty of literature about genius
mhm,
all around the world throughout history, you can see there's a beautiful little YouTube video with this certain author where she's talking about when you see somebody expressing their genius,
Mhm.
you kind of become really like enamored with it and it helps you to open your own. And basically, as she describes it, you're seeing God there
Mm.
through that person. And it's so moving that you are kind of taken beyond yourself. And the person expressing it gets to feel that as well. And it doesn't matter whether you're dancing, whether you're creating spreadsheets, whether you're gardening, whatever it is for you that you give for your gift, that's you can see that through there. You can see the genius being expressed and you can feel it as well.
Okay. That's beautiful in so many different ways, and I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
good.
the video I'm talking about is a video about Elizabeth Gilbert talking about
Okay.
one of her last books, Big Magic. So it's
Okay.
a nice video. Everybody wants to see that.
Earlier, you alluded to the East and West. How do those philosophies differ in each other?
Well, the Eastern philosophies are, coming from, Hinduism, Buddhism, Taoism, whereas the Western would be, the Greeks and the Romans
Mm,
mostly.
okay.
And so, there's quite a bit of difference, but when you go all the way back, to the origins of it, the premise is the same,
Mhm.
that we have within us something that is not just our personality. We're not just the wounds that have happened to us. We're also something much larger than that. And that our life has a purpose,
Right.
has a point. And the thing that you do with life is to kind of find that and start to express it. That's when your life really starts to change.
Yeah. I think that a lot of people tend to stifle their spirit in so many different ways, or how you whatever you want to call it. I think it's whether it's a fear of being judged or whether it's a fear of being thought differently. I guess it's the same thing as being judged. Where do you think that societal pressure comes from to kind of not for that conformity?
Yeah. So, I mean, we originally fit into societies so that we wouldn't be thrown out and starved to death.
Correct.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the more oppressive the societies become, the more, pressure there is to conform. And so coming out of that, one thing we have to realize is that we're not going to be kicked out of our society. We're not going to starve. We're not going to be banished.
Yeah.
If you do get banished from the little society that you find yourself in, you will then eventually find yourself in a different society, meaning a different group of people or a different like kind of
Tribe
way
almost.
of a different tribe where they were like, "You're cool. That's beautiful. That's
Hmm.
amazing." And
Yeah.
sometimes it takes that to reach your new society, basically.
Yeah, it's basically to not to put too fine a point on it, it's new friends, new playground. I think someone said one time recently on the show, you are the 5 people that you hang out with, and so it's better to surround yourself with people that are gonna lift you up and make you, whole, or not even make you whole, but just kinda make you thrive in life, and in this day and age, it's incredibly hard to do, to find people that are genuine enough, and I really blame just social media, and I say that so much on the show, but it's because it's so true. It's gotten us away from human connection, or even getting out with nature, even like just going for a bike ride, even. But most people don't want to do that. So speaking of that kind of stuff, what do you do for hobbies and stuff?
Me, I'm a builder.
Yeah,
And so I'll say that with a caveat. I've built houses and everything, but I love working with my hands
yeah,
and making furniture and kind of working around the house, which my wife really loves. I've always done that. I learned all the skills from my dad. And so that's kind of how I have fun. I
yeah,
know it sounds a little weird, but
mm-mm,
it's really gratifying to build and create things.
yeah,
And it occupies a whole different part of my brain and being than sitting and talking to people all day long.
yeah. I don't. Yeah, that's at my job. Let me preference it with this. It's not a super physically demanding job. I'm not like laying concrete or any crap like that. But working in surgery, you're on your feet, and it depends on how long the surgery goes. That's how long you're on your feet for. So But, so
Plus,
what
it's high pressure, I would imagine.
it can be in some instances. I've worked in trauma centers where, you get somebody that comes in with a gunshot wound and you're like, "Gotta go." That's all behind me now because it just got to the point to where it was wearing on my soul. Somebody gets in a car accident or whatever, and it's like, ugh, there's only so much of that you can take.
Seeing people on the worst day of their life.
Exactly. And then sometimes it's the worst, but it's also the best day because sometimes they think they have cancer and they come in and you realize that it's not going to be as aggressive as they thought. So I mean, it's a double edged sword and all that. So what do you think are some of the most, as humans, and as a psychotherapist, what do you think is the most challenging for humans right now as far as the day to day life? What do you think?
Well, I think the world is kind of upside down right now.
Hmm.
No matter where you're living
Yeah.
in the world, we seem to be in literally unprecedented times. Nobody knows what the hell is going to happen. There is literally kind of like a global trauma that's happening to everyone because no matter whether they're worried about their health, their food, whatever, there's also like this level of uncertainty that even if they're not getting information that things are uncertain, it's just in the vibe, it's in the zeitgeist of this time.
Yeah.
And it's like most people haven't had to deal with that, at least in, first world countries. They haven't had to deal with that level of
Mm.
uncertainty
Yeah.
for quite a while.
Yeah. Especially with everything that's going on in Iran. It's just the stupidity. I mean, no matter how you label it, it's just war. And I don't know what your opinions on that are. To me, it's just to make money.
Yeah, I have no idea, and it's way above my pay grade. You know, what I deal with, my contribution and my part of my genius is to deal with how other people are reacting to
Hmm.
this and try to help them understand themselves better so that they can better deal with
Right.
the uncertainty of the world right now.
Yeah, hopefully it gets a little bit better. I think people are looking for a level of peace that they just can't attain anymore. Because if I mean, you look at all the external factors, and it's like whether it's the bills or whatever, you know what I mean, and it's like people that they can't catch their breath
Yes.
because everything is so out of control.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. You can't catch your breath. You can't like get your grounding.
And what happens is pardon the expression, but shit rolls downhill. The people that are untouched by it, they don't even know what it's like to be in the situations that you and I and everybody else is in because they just don't have to worry about it. But um, I'm trying to think of a way to say it without, it's just hopefully the bombs don't drop is all I'm saying. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
And I mean, and if they do, I guess we had a good run, folks. Catch you later. You know?
Yeah, we've been living with this idea after the Second World War with when is the next one? Hopefully, this is the last one.
Mm,
We never know.
yeah.
So anytime there's a war like this, everybody's wondering, okay, is this the Third World War, which is
Mm,
supposed to be the
end of it.
last war that we can possibly have,
Yeah.
you
Yeah. And
know?
I mean, I hope and pray that it's not, and I'm sure that
Sure.
you're the same
Me
thought
too.
process as that.
Yeah.
Because I mean, life is sacred and it shouldn't be taken for granted and it shouldn't be lost over greed. But here we are.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
anyway, to finish the thought,
Sorry.
the thing that that I'm seeing with literally every single client that I see,
Hmm.
besides whatever they're working on individually, they are experiencing at least a national trauma because my clients are in the US.
Hmm.
Most it's a national trauma.
Yeah.
No matter who you voted for or whatever, everybody is dealing with this deep kind of I said uncertainty before, but it's more than that. There's genuine fear.
Yeah. It's not even just what's going on overseas. I think it's stuff that's happening here too. And it's like I alluded to before. There's just this ridiculous level of uneasiness. I'm 46, and so the first time that we had anything like this in my memory was the first Iraq war, and then and I remember just being a kid and not having a worry in the world back then. But now as an adult, you're like, why? But I'm trying to figure out as how to word it is, excuse me, is this level of tension that we're under. I don't know anybody who could relax. it's making people so anxious and on edge. I'm just afraid it's going to spill over to something else. You know what
Well,
I mean?
think about it this way. If you look back not so long ago, maybe 1,000 years ago,
Hmm.
humans had around, a small village, which is where most humans lived, had around maybe 150 people in it. And there's research that's been done that says basically you only have the brain and the nervous system capacity to know 150 people and their lives and the things that happen to it and be able to relate and care about it.
Right.
Anything over than that is I'm not biologically or neurologically available to
Yeah.
anymore. Okay.
Yeah.
So we have access to everything that's going on everywhere. Okay. And it's like way more than our biology it has evolved to take in.
Yeah.
And so that puts a strain on our nervous system without us even knowing it.
Correct.
I mean, think about it. 300 years ago, I bet you had a relative, and I'm sure I've had one whose job it was to take the sheep out to the side of the hill and sit under the tree and watch them, make sure nothing eats them, and just twiddle their thumbs all day and then bring them back in. Okay.
Hmm.
Think about that.
Yeah.
That's not very long ago. That's how
No.
people lived. And if you want to know what's going on from here to Europe, let's say, it took you like a month and a half to get a letter,
Yeah. That's right.
not like flooding all day long, what's happening in every country
Well,
in the world.
yeah, and now you have. I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but you have 8 billion
Okay.
people right
Yeah.
here. You know what I mean? And so it's 100% what you're saying. I'm saying I didn't mean to cut you off, but
No, it's,
I just had to
yeah.
vehemently agree with you.
Right. So what I'm saying, there's no mystery on why people are freaked out because we are literally not designed. We haven't evolved to the point where we can consume that much in a healthy way. It
Yeah, and
just
I think if we do, we're going to have a neural link in our head or something
right,
ridiculous.
right.
Yeah. So here's a thought. How do you? I mean, obviously, without saying too much, how do you get your clients to just kind of readjust or recalibrate?
Well, besides helping them to find their genius, which is their gifts that they get to express, I bring them into their local life, their
Hmm.
immediate life, right? And say, okay, what can you do right in your life, even if it's just in your own home or in your town? What can you do to make yours and somebody else's life better? Because that's again, 300 years ago, that's all we had.
Yeah.
You could feed somebody in your neighborhood, you could, cook a chicken for somebody or God knows what else,
Right. Yeah.
right? And doing those things takes you out of that place of feeling helpless. Like what can I do for somebody in South Africa when I live in Southern California?
Exactly.
I can write a check, maybe
Hmm.
make some posts about what's happening anywhere in the world. But when you're locally, when you're like doing what's in front of you,
Hmm.
that feels like you're, really contributing.
Yeah. Isn't it that think globally, act locally kind of is that old school mentality? And it's basically just doing what you can control. You can't control what goes on thousands of miles away, obviously. So, and the problem is that people have this anxiety of you get someone who's very empathetic and they take on what they read or what they watch or what goes on around them. And those people, my heart goes out to them because I was been fortunately blessed not to have that too much. I mean, because not to go back to it, but my chosen career, it's like there comes a point to where it's not that I have ever lost sympathy for a patient. It's just there's sometimes it like someone lets a firework go off in their hand. It's like I really don't, you know what I mean? It's like you kind of did that to yourself, dude. But anyways, but yet again, I think it all goes back to that human connection and where we have to say, talk to your neighbor or talk to the stranger, and it's also learning how to build people up too. Where do you think? I mean, besides the obvious place, but where do you think that level of jealousy or judgment comes from?
Yeah, well, jealousy to me usually means that someone hasn't stepped into their own value and their own worthiness.
Hmm.
So instead of trying to find more of that for themselves, they think that tearing someone else down or some other person's life, making less worthy makes them more worthy. Whereas really just, if you felt worthy, you literally wouldn't behave that way. You wouldn't do
Exactly.
it.
Yeah. Do you and probably some of that stems from home life as a child or even as an adult too. We have too much shiny object syndrome. No matter what we have, we always want more. And I'm guilty of it just as much as anybody else is, because if you I think if you grow up impoverished and like which is like how I did, we grew up. I mean, I didn't really want for anything like food and shelter and the basics, but you didn't have the nicest clothes or whatever. So as you get older, it's like, oh, well, I'm making money now, so I'm just going to waste it all on everything. So, and the problem is that I think to sound kind of snarky or gimmicky, but people are like onions, right? So many layers, and that's like, I know it sounds like a Hallmark postcard or some stupid shit, but it's the truth. It's like everybody has different needs and different wants, but I think everybody wants love, everybody wants comfort, and everybody wants understanding. But other than that, it's all gobbledygook, I think. But so real quick, I had somebody on my show a while back, whatever you call it. Uh, they referred to Buddhism as a philosophy and not a religion. How do you feel? I mean, what do you think about that statement? Just out of curiosity.
Well, when I think about the word religion,
Hmm.
to me, that's different than a religious institution or organization. Religion, go back to the Latin
Hmm.
religare, which
Hmm.
means to tie back like a cord that's been cut to tie it back together.
Okay.
So religion to me is reconnecting with God, the source, energy, whatever you want to call it, the
Right. Okay.
universe. So Buddhism, I I imagine there was a guy named Buddha who found some kind of awakening. And I think probably everything that came after that just built on the institutionalization of it.
Hmm.
And I think it kind of becomes distorted pretty quickly.
Just like all religions do at
Yeah.
that point. You know what I mean? Because you don't. It's like the game of telephone. Like when you,
Yeah.
it always changes before it gets to the
Yeah.
end.
That's right.
So how long have you been in practice?
Yeah. Practicing as a licensed psychotherapist for about 20 years now.
Hmm.
And, what it really interests me is, like I said, the aspect of people helping people to express their gifts,
Hmm.
which again, yeah, it's definitely a niche and it's something that most people don't really think about. But I've come to find that it's really a thing. It's really an issue
Hmm.
when you don't actually know what your gifts are and know how to get them expressed.
Right. What kind of factors blocks that? I mean, besides trauma and that kind of thing.
Yeah, well, one thing that blocks it is, a lot of people literally go through life and they don't expect a lot,
Mm.
right? But
Hmm.
like, let's talk about the idea of feeling stuck because that's
Yeah,
something that everybody can relate to. Feel
I've been
stuck
there.
in my life.
Yeah.
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 So let's look at it just from the beginning. Like, the feeling of being stuck is not a fun experience. It
Correct.
feels pretty bad. Okay. So I always kind of say to my clients, feeling stuck is actually a good thing because, yeah, just bear with me here.
Absolutely.
Because if stagnancy and being in one spot was our natural state, it would
Hmm.
feel fine. It'd
Right.
just be, I'm just kind of a slug sitting here on the log. Nothing's happening. I don't care. If that was our natural state, it'd be great. But the reason it bothers us is because we know there's something that needs to be moving in our lives. We're going from birth to death, certainly every single one of us without exception, right? Without exception. And along the way, there is an awareness that comes up where I haven't lived my life fully yet. I haven't expressed the things that I care about enough yet, right? And for that, that's to me, that's like a tragedy.
Yeah.
And I like to do something about it.
Yeah. I mean, and I think that what you're talking about, it just comes from a baseline of fear. It's like they're afraid to say what they need to say or do what they need to do. Like that's why I take everybody that's close to me in my life. I take the time out, tell them I love them
Mm, that's
because,
beautiful.
and it's like you have to. It's like I tell my girlfriend a million times a day I love her because I do. I tell my mom every time I talk to her I love her because you don't know if that's going to be the last time you talk to them. You know what I mean? Like if
One
yeah,
time it will be.
yeah, it will be. I don't want anybody that I care about to doubt I love them. You know what I
Right.
mean? So why would I, not take every opportunity to do it or to show it?
And
So
so take that's a beautiful thing, and it's a
mhm,
really good philosophy to kinda operate from.
mhm,
Now take it one step further.
mhm,
It's like, what about this person here? What about this guy?
right,
Did he express the gifts that he was given to his fullest extent so
mhm,
that they can, so that the world can benefit? Did he live his life fully? Right? So you got to look at yourself like your own best friend
mhm, yeah.
and give yourself that opportunity. I mean, so let me ask you, how did you decide to do a podcast? How did that come about?
Well, I got 4 days off a week because I started working a weekend shift. Actually, it kinda started about a few months before that, but, I just like talking to people, and I've never met a stranger, and so I just can't shut my yap, so I figured I might as well do it in front of a camera and talk to
Right.
somebody and learn something.
But you know what? One thing that I've seen throughout our interview here, throughout
Mhm,
our time, is that you keep coming back to like important questions that you obviously care about. Okay. So to me, this is part of your genius. This gives you a way to address things that are important to you and
mhm,
to kind of open it up so I can see what other people are talking about. So maybe we can, you know, are you trying to raise the energy
mhm.
of the planet? You're trying to raise awareness? What is it?
Well, for me, I've always had a quest for knowledge, right? And it's and truth. Truth is a huge thing for me.
There you go.
And so I don't believe in my truth. I just believe in the truth. Because truth is not subjective; it is objective. And it also gives me a chance to talk to cool people like you because we're on opposite ends of the country. I had an icebreaker conversation with someone today who's coming on the show. They're in Australia, and this is the third time I've spoken to somebody from Australia, and it's a beautiful thing. So it gives me a chance to learn from so many different cultures, and from so many different cool people. So yeah, and that's and
Yeah.
that's what what I dig about it.
Yeah.
So
So it's fun. It helps your curiosity, the part of
mhm,
you that's very curious,
mhm,
but it also you're kind of looking for what's true in all this.
mhm,
There's
yeah,
something that you know, but there's also like a searcher. It's like, let me get closer to what's true. Let me see
mhm,
what it is through
right,
everybody else's experience. And I compare it to
yeah,
my own and I open myself to other people's ideas and so forth. So you have found through this podcast something that is generative.
mhm,
When you're done, when we're done with our conversation, you're going to be different. I'm going to be different
yeah,
because of this,
yeah.
right?
It's a
Your life's
shared,
going to be a little
yeah.
bit bigger, and so's mine.
Exactly. I've often said it. We're here to help one another, and I think I've already said it once. This show, we can learn from each other, despite our differences, despite cultural exclusions and things of that nature. And I think we can take it a step further, and we can embrace those and be better people. Like let's just use Mexicans for an example. They have great work ethic and they have really good food. You know what I mean? Or you look at people from Germany. Yet again, good beer, good food, good conversations. They're just good people. So I mean, why would I want to limit myself in that arena when I could? My girlfriend. People would hear me talk about her ad nauseum on this thing, but she's from Czech Republic, and I went there with her last year, and I met her family. They're lovely people. I love them all dearly, and just that culture is beautiful. So I don't like you're saying people don't live their life to the fullest because of fear or I think the biggest negator of people living their fullest is they feel they can't do it because of finances. That is a limiting factor at some time for some people, myself included. If I want to take a trip to Europe, I got to save for it. for example, you can go to Asian town or Chinatown in San Francisco or whatever and learn different things and be in different cultures. So I think it's really up to the individual how they want to do it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and you're talking about being creative,
Hmm. Right.
right? Talking about using your imagination to kind of, address your curiosity and the things you want to do. So a lot of people fail because of the imagination. And the other big one here, which is like harder to understand, is most people, I'm going to say most people, are afraid of their upper limit because what if I am like really good at this or really talented here, or what if I can be very successful here? Then what do I do with this part of myself that feels like a piece of crap?
Right.
What do I do with that?
Yeah.
Right? Because I've identified with that and this worthlessness for so long.
Hmm.
How can I be the person that succeeds? How can I be the person that's like living their best life? Right? And you think that's not really a problem, but when you really get down to it, a lot of time that's there.
Do you think that's almost a version of imposter syndrome?
It's definitely imposter syndrome. Yes.
Yeah.
So that's why, the idea of genius and everyone having one, it's your genius is baked into you.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
You have something or a handful of things that are yours to express they're going to make you feel really beautiful, and they've showed up in your life at various times, and you either paid attention or you didn't, right?
Yeah.
But the idea is that you have great value whether you think you do or not.
Hmm.
Great
Yeah.
value to yourself and to the world and the people around you. So when you see it that way, the wounds that you've received during your life, which kind of force you to identify with like, well, I'm not that great. I'm flawed. I'm an imposter. If you see, wait a minute, I have a genius and this doesn't mean anything for what I've done before. This is
Hmm.
already here for me. This is already part of me. You start relating to that more. And then that failure that you were isn't trying to be the successful one. It's like, oh, I'm just going to express my genius.
Yeah.
That's easy. I already have it.
Hmm.
I don't have to feel unworthy of being successful or whatever the heck you're going for. Does that make sense?
Yeah. 100%. It's almost like getting in your own way, and it's very, like
It
you,
is.
it's very
Yeah.
much I, keep bringing it up on, in general, but it's like the trauma that, like parents, for example, parents have a very large responsibility. It's a hard duty to not ruin a kid. This is what, and I, sorry, people listening, but I've said it before. My father was a monster when it came to that. He he was a seventh grade education, but yet again, his circumstance was he was born in 1927, so he had to come out of school, work on the farm because that's what they did, So he felt that he wasn't good enough, so he projected it onto me and a couple other kids in my family. But they got out, I got stuck because I was the youngest. So, anyways, and that has, and I've said it before, that is translated into my adult life. There's people that think I'm useless, and I'm like, you know what? Or they say something to me that's rude, and I'm like, is that supposed to hurt my feelings? Because what I say in here, you don't even like. That's what you said to me was nice, like that's a compliment. So and I think that's where we have to look at each other as being, like I said earlier on, onions. And obviously, but our own ego, our own self-doubt, our own things like that get in the way of us opening up that potential in each other. I'm guilty of it too. Sometimes you feel like you want to hold that person down, but through the grace of God, I'm able to not, go through those impulses. It's like, or you find somebody that just, quite frankly, you don't like. And then, but yeah, it does happen because, like, and not everybody's going to like everybody, but nobody should go out of their way to hurt anybody. So I mean, I don't know, maybe I'm sounding kind of weird, but it's just, it's like the golden rule: do unto others, and it doesn't, that doesn't change no matter what. So I have two questions that I ask people that come on my show, and these are, sometimes I catch people off guard with them, but I don't think you'll be one of those people. The first one is, what are two like tent poles of who you are that make you bend?
All right, that's a good question, but only two.
Well, you can give me four if you want, 5, 10, a million, whatever you want to do.
Thinking
Yeah.
about a tent, I'm picturing a tent with two poles. Okay, I see it. All right. So the first one is when kind of what I was talking about before. I want to be a mm, a light in people's lives. In other words, when I communicate with somebody, I want to be of value to that person. I want them to feel better about themselves and the world having had contact with me. That's one.
Okay.
The second one is kind of like the first one, but
Hmm.
I would like them to know themselves better as a result of me being in the world.
Nice.
And
Yeah.
and by themselves, not just, their flaws, but their beauty
Hmm.
and their gifts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
That's
beautiful.
means a lot to me.
Yeah, and and that's a valid point that you bring up. I think as humans, we tend to. I mean, we are flawed creatures, but I think we tend to focus on our flaws too much. And what do you think that is? Why do you think that we have this thing in our brain that makes us just focus on negativity so much?
Well, I think it's mostly our cultural dynamic.
Yeah.
You have thousands of years of people using religion to
Mm,
control others in
yeah.
some way or another.
Hmm.
And, there's a lot of pressure again. The bigger the society, the more pressure there is to conform and stay within the realm and bounds. And you think about it just like if you've ever felt like I've got some weight I should drop, right? And
Right.
then you look at people in your social media feed and you're like, well, look, I'm not as thin as them or as muscular or whatever. And it's way worse for women to
Hmm.
see that, but it happens for guys too. And that's just a small example of like, why do we hate ourselves? Well, there's lots of pressure to conform and be a certain thing
Hmm.
in a society.
Yeah.
The differences aren't really valued.
Right. Yeah, and the opposite side of that is they should be embraced. Because I was talking to an anesthesiologist this weekend while I was working, and we were talking. It was just before the case, we're setting it up, and he was saying something about people being the same or being different, and I said, if we were all the same, the world would be a very boring place.
Uh-huh.
Life would be kind of not worth living at that point. And it's like because your differences make you Ben, mine make me Phil, but two people coming or more people coming together to work together towards a common goal is a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I guess it really but, I mean, I guess you could say that to Oppenheimer, or maybe not. But, I mean, it's just I mean, obviously, I might be in my feelings about war right now because of what's going on, but I'm not I just don't like to see people dying for ridiculous reasons. I
I
don't
don't
think
like to see people dying for any reason.
right.
I
Yeah,
mean, really, I
yeah.
don't. I don't get it. That part of this world, I don't get. We're
No,
still killing each other or hurting each other. I don't understand it. I
yeah.
don't.
I mean, there and don't get me wrong, we can get a little philosophical about it, but, there are evil people in the world. We can agree on that one, but and I think that should be dealt with accordingly, but I think we're so quick to switch to violence, and it's just a loss of life. And then, li I believe life is precious on every level. But to kinda tie it in, the second question that I have is you're about to go to the next life. What do you wanna be remembered for?
Yeah. Again, similar.
Mhm,
This guy Ben helped us to find our innate genius.
mhm,
He kind of shone a light on the path of what we have within us that will make us, if we follow it, will make us have rich, fulfilling, and contributing lives to the others around us.
yeah, absolutely. So, I wanna say thanks for coming on. I really appreciate
Absolutely.
it. Where can people find you?
Yeah, the best way, just go to thegeniusway.com, and everything that I do is kind of on there. And you know, you can go more into depth with what we talked about on the show.
Absolutely, I mean, I think you're doing great work. I think
Thanks,
it's
Phil.
there's so much, there's so much potential in people, and we need people like you to help unlock it, and just to spread the light, my brother. So you can find my show on YouTube and Spotify. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram. So thanks for listening, everybody. Appreciate it.